This is MuggleCast, your Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts podcast covering everything about J.K. Rowling's Wizarding World. Welcome to MuggleCast episode 296. Happy 4th of July weekend to all of our American listeners, and I guess the people over in the UK can celebrate Independence Day with us too, right?
Too soon.
Oh.
Nope.
Hashtag Brexit. You know, I tweeted J.K. Rowling asking her if Brexit was going to affect the value of the galleon, and she hasn't replied yet.
That's so weird.
Interesting.
It's like she's snubbing you now.
Yeah.
How strange.
Well, I want to know. I want to know if I should go buy galleons or if I should hold off. Maybe now's a good time to visit Hogwarts. It's probably cheap. Or Hogsmeade.
Yeah.
Well, the Wizarding World has been independent for years, so I think they're okay.
Yes, this is true.
Do you think the Wizarding World is in the EU? That's a whole other discussion.
Tweet J.K. Rowling. Let's get to the bottom of this.
She loves me.
One question you should ask is if the Wizarding World in both Orlando and Los Angeles will now become cheaper for us to attend.
This is a good point. Yes. The answer is probably no. Universal tends to raise ticket prices every year
and not lower them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But actually, legitimately, it's a bad time for people over there to come over in the UK to come visit now because of the value of the dollar or the value of the pound.
Right.
Anyway, Selena, Micah, Eric, and I are here this week. We're going to be talking about
Let's talk about Brexit.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to Brexit Cast.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Ilvermorny. So J.K. Rowling finally revealed a ton of details about the American Wizarding School on Pottermore and the houses and the sorting test. So that's all coming up on today's show. But first of all, I just want to offer a quick plug for our Patreon because we just announced a new milestone and we're close to reaching it. We're only not too many patrons away from hitting it. It's the mega MuggleCast milestone goal. And what this is, if we hit this goal, we will bring back every single MuggleCast host. Well, the very large majority of MuggleCast hosts for a super duper mega episode in early September. And we're just going to get the whole band back together to celebrate a new term at Hogwarts. And of course, we're approaching a big MuggleCast anniversary. So all that is what we're working toward as a milestone on Patreon. And just one other quick thing. This is the final month to sign up if you want to receive a t-shirt. So you have to sign up by July 31st to receive a t-shirt through Patreon. Full details are on patreon.com/MuggleCast. And of course, you get lots of other benefits too when you pledge. And thank you to everybody who's supporting us and who will be supporting us. So that's that. Let's get into Ilvermorny.
Yes.
What houses are we all in? I am Pukwudgie.
So am I.
And I'm Thunderbird.
And so am I.
Okay, I like this split. This is a good little split.
A little 50-50.
Yeah.
Thunderbirds forever.
So it was interesting. What happened was they announced Ilvermorny and all the details and the sorting test at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I my only critique about all of this is that it felt weird to me because when we took the sorting hat test, the Hogwarts sorting hat test on Pottermore all those years ago, we all knew the Hogwarts houses very well at that point. Mm-hmm. Whereas this, we were just suddenly thrusted into it. Like, hey guys, here's the school, here's the houses, now get sorted. Like, we had no time to decide which one we wanted ourselves, which one we identified with, you know?
Right. And when we got an answer,
do you think that kind of, oh, go on.
It was like, what did we just get? So that was all.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you think it kind of sort of reflects how you're sorted at the different schools? Because I've been thinking a lot about this and how in Hogwarts, it is kind of like how you think of yourself. And in Ilvermorny, it kind of is the house chooses you, so you have a lot less autonomy. So actually, maybe it kind of works out.
Yeah.
That we're just thrust into a house. But I will say, though, I did have one criticism. I don't know about you guys. My test was really short. It was less than 10 questions. And I sort of felt like, is that it? Do I really trust the answer based on that little? And some of the questions were super weirdly phrased and stuff.
I mean, it took me a while to take it because they were asking some deep questions in this test.
There was that one. It was like, okay, ideal scenario. What answer would you want to hear to the question?
I know. I was like,
everything
depends
in
on
the universe?
question.
It was like, what?
Some of my answers definitely were a little bit, well, it could be any one of these 5, so I'm just going to go with this one, which felt a little, I mean, I just feels like it's so weird to see people sort of be like, oh, I guess I'm a blah, blah, blah now, when it's like, well, are you really though?
Yeah.
Like how much do we trust it?
Maybe it's meant to be jarring. I don't know. Maybe it's because in all this hubbub that's happened the week after, I'm just thinking maybe that was the point. Maybe Joe's just like, they're not the same. You shouldn't think they're the same. And so like she can get away with, Ilvermorny can get away with giving only 7 questions to assess your entire, because ultimately it's less about personality. Which,
it just makes me feel less connected to it because I'm like, yeah, I'm a Pugwudgie, but if I'd answered these 3 questions differently, maybe I would have been something else.
Exactly. That absolutely makes a lot of sense, even to me. And I want to draw comparisons, and we all want to draw comparisons between houses in any way. But it's like, well, because this is so short of a quiz, and because it's just sort of thrown in there with the most basic, traits associated with houses, unlike the Harry Potter series where there's 7 books, it does feel like it's intentionally trying to push us away from the mold that we're so familiar with.
Right, and maybe that is true, but I will just say I've taken the quiz 3 times. The first time I got Pugwudgie, so that's what I'm going with. The second time I got Wampus, and the third time I got Thunderbird. And I'm like,
You know what? And that's a whole other debate.
Like, yeah.
Because
do it
so
a
I'm
4th
just like,
time, Selena, and then
I might get
you'd be one of those people that only once a decade gets sorted into all 4.
You're the Serafina Pickery of 2016.
Yes.
I don't want to get in.
I just feel like it's unreliable.
Right. I don't want to get into that side of the debate because that actually really annoys me. And I'm just out of Harry Potter complaining juice for this month. I tried to start writing an article about it, but I was like, I can't do this. I'm done. I've said enough this month.
But I think you raise a good point, though, because there's no way that you can possibly be connected to these houses in such a short period of time.
No.
I mean, think about all the years that you had to connect with Hogwarts and its 4 houses. And I feel like these points have all been raised already, but the fact of the matter is J.K. Rowling wanted to be able to provide a sorting process for this new school, given its connection to the new movie that's going to be released later on this year. And I just don't see that there's any way that we could all say with definitive purpose that we are this house or that house. Just it's like a quiz. Unfortunately, like I hate to compare it to a BuzzFeed quiz, but that's kind of what it is. I mean,
yeah,
it
is. Yeah, it's a perception.
Yeah, and that's kind of like my whole reasoning, because I know me and Eric sort of disagree very publicly on this, but that's like one of my reasons why I'm so quick to I'm bringing it up. Oh my God. No, that I'm so quick to say, well, how do we compare these to Hogwarts? Cause I still feel like the Hogwarts house is like the ultimate, and I found myself sorting the Ilvermorny houses into Hogwarts houses when I was doing that comparison, because I was like, I may as well, Yeah. And I do think, I mean, we can talk about that, but I do think
but that's fair though, because that's your basis for comparison, though.
That's the entire
exactly.
Yeah. And we don't disagree. Selena and I do not disagree that there's a correlation between the houses, but it's always a question about how do they fit and what does it all mean?
Right.
If you get Thunderbird and they're said to be adventurers, well, is that Gryffindor? Because Gryffindor are adventurers. Well, you also have Slytherins who are bold-headed. All the Ilvermorny traits. Where do they line up and where do they line up? It's sort of, I think, where everyone who's taken this test's head is at, because frankly, the writing does not, and it was, I did enjoy the story. It's lengthy, but it did not sort of answer to our satisfaction the same kind of, it didn't fill the void of, or provide a sense of belonging so much as just gave you sort of a quiz result that you're supposed to now, it now decorates your homepage.
It's just...
Well, I do want to say, like, one thing, and then you can speak. Sorry, I just want to say Ariana from Hypable actually had what I think is the best explanation for how they are different. Is she said Hogwarts versus Ilvermorny houses is like your, like, sun versus moon astrology sign. Hogwarts projects, it is what you project out. And Ilvermorny is what's going on inside of you. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. I like that.
The other thing, and this kind of hit me last night, it's just for fun. It's just if people are excited about this new Ilvermorny American Wizarding School. It's cool for us Harry Potter fans to know that J.K. Rowling has this school in her head here in the United States. And it's just for fun. And this hit me last night when I was at a party with a group of people who are Harry Potter friends. And we were all just kind of being like, it was fun to hear what houses each of us got sorted into. It was just fun to like go around the circle and say it, even though we couldn't really elaborate on it because we don't know much about these houses. But still, it's just fun. That's all I could say. So
I would. Oh yeah. Are you going to move on?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go back to houses later.
Yeah, for sure. So this next part, did we talk about this just now? I guess we kind of did, right? Yeah. But I one thing I found interesting was the way the people were actually ending up being sorted. It looks like, and this panel is a reflection of it, that most people were sorted into Pukwudgie and Thunderbird.
This was interesting.
Yeah.
This was very, very interesting.
Unlike Pottermore's Hogwarts test, which was evenly putting people in all the houses, my theory was for house points reasons, everyone is... So, according to the latest version of the poll, which we were running on Hypable, 38% are in Thunderbird. That's the biggest. Second largest is Pukwudgie with 28%. 22% were in Horned Serpent. And then Wampus has had the smallest number this whole time with 12%.
And the question is just, does this quiz measure different aspects of your person? Like, why is it that the majority of Harry Potter fans, regardless of what Hogwarts house they're in, why are the majority of them in Thunderbird and Pukwudgie? Like, how does
it might have something to do with the questions. Like, I was thinking, some of the answers just don't make sense to me. Like, and I'm thinking maybe other people have the same, like, they look for, maybe there are just some answers to these questions that are more common than others,
That's interesting.
Yeah, I agree with that because, yes, yeah. And then there's been breakdowns of where each Hogwarts house is ending up at Ilvermorny. See, all this data has been fun to look through.
Yeah,
so cool. I like that.
You shared the poll on Hypable, the statistics from the Hogwarts, was it Running Club?
Yeah, so they conducted their own survey and they gave us the data. So by the way, there is a running club for Harry Potter fans. It's on Facebook. Like Eric said, Hogwarts Running Club.
Go check it out.
Cool. Yeah. So like the most interesting thing I found was that Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, and
Everyone's in Thunderbird.
Right. Well, besides that, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw all had kind of equal splits in terms of where their students were going at Ilvermorny, but Slytherin had the most equal distribution across all four Ilvermorny schools. And we have pie charts up on Hypable if you want to check them out. But yeah,
this is like a real statistical breakdown.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, thanks to a survey that the Running Club people did. Even BuzzFeed.
And all that tells me is that, no one is getting into Wampus.
Yeah.
Which, it's like, why? That would seem to be, I don't know, that would seem to be a more common house, I'd think.
No.
I was kind of hoping that J.K. Rowling would take to Twitter to answer some questions about these houses, because I
think she still might.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, I was running infographics all week. I was taking poll. I have a poll as well with 100.
She was doing
people.
Nothing. I mean,
she was doing nothing.
The fact that you're working so hard and she's not doing a damn thing. She's too busy with Brexit.
I didn't say that, nor did I even think it, but I do think that it's very clear. No, the few people, well, I don't say few people, the dozens of people, complete opposite, dozens of people I've engaged with over the last week about this house thing, this house crisis, this house puzzle, this mystery, because you're talking about, us potentially identifying with a new house that we know nothing about. So there's that. That's just what we've said before. But the dozens of people I've interacted with over the last week, and the 1,100 people who have taken my poll, the 1,100 people who took Hogwarts Running Club's poll, like, we all kind of are interested in getting to the bottom of this. And this is something that J.K. Rowling, she addressed in one tweet. She said that the houses were not equivalent. What she didn't say is that they don't like correlate or have anything to do with one another. So that's very suspect. She could have elaborated further. She didn't, so far as I'm aware, completely yet. But it's something that she can always elaborate on in the future. She can do another story on the houses. It would seem to be time, considering we all took the test now, it's like, well, okay, but what does it mean? You know, we still kind of want to know. And are we going to realistically have to wait 4 months till November to maybe get a throwaway line about a certain house in Ilvermorny because we're going to be interacting with wizards who went there for the first time on screen? Or is there going to be more writing, or is there going to be more tweets once she sees like 2,000 word essays on Hypable from Selena and, you know, all these polls and infographics on Tumblr and everything else all around that like people are doing trying to get to the bottom of this? Like, I think a 140 character tweet is not enough to sate our desires and our curiosity.
And where is that Patronus quiz? Like, is it ever coming? I don't think so.
Let's just jump on Joe.
You will be sorted, Selena, into the African School of Witchcraft and Wizardry before you get a Patronus.
I am sure that's true.
But actually, that got me thinking what you just said, you know, knowing that Iseult, is that how you say her name?
Yeah, Iseult. Yeah.
Iseult, that she never attended Hogwarts. So you could argue the fact that there really is no correlation between the two.
Did you? The one thing that I made out in my article is that Iseult grew up with stories of Hogwarts, and actually, when she decided to build the school, her sons told her that they wanted houses just like Hogwarts had houses, and she always dreamed of being in Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
And she made Horned Serpent too, which supports that correlation. So I feel like what the houses of Ilvermorny sort of do reflect is like her idea of what the Hogwarts houses could be, which actually I really like that idea. I think that goes sort of deeply into the text in a way that feels very J.K. Rowling to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that I know we spent a lot of time talking about the backstory that J.K. Rowling provided for the wizarding world here in America, but this particular piece that she released felt much more J.K. Rowling-like.
Yeah,
so good. Mm-hmm.
I don't know about if it was the same for the rest of you.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah. I thought it was like so. I'm still thinking like, oh, why is this not why does this have to be a summary? It could so easily be a full story. But the story itself, like everything she said, I was like, this feels very magical to me.
Yeah. By the way, did you guys agree with your initial house selections? Like reading the description? For example, Puckwudgie, mine, it says, named by James Stewart after the fiercely independent magical creature, the Puckwudgie. Puckwudgie house is sometimes considered to represent the heart of a witch or wizard. It is also said that Puckwudgie favors healers. I agree with the fiercely independent part. I mean, I at least feel independent. I enjoy being independent. I don't know if I'm fiercely independent, but...
You are if you want to be.
Yeah, I suppose so.
For me, I thought it was cool being sorted into Thunderbird for adventures because I had been feeling, I don't want to say kept in a box. With Hufflepuff sorting on Pottermore, which after reading the Hogwarts letter, I actually completely agreed with. But I had been dressing as a Gryffindor all those years, as you all know. And I felt kind of cut off from the Gryffindor aspect, which to me is like the bold, the brash, the adventurous, the brave. So getting sorted into Thunderbird was like, hey, this is cool because now I can feel like I'm still like it speaks to my interest in having adventures and, you know, travel and that kind of all that kind of stuff that's part of me, but like I had forgotten or not sort of associated with a Hogwarts house. I could then sort of put into in the Ilvermorny sorting.
It allows you to find a new side of yourself, I guess. I mean, Thunderbird is the coolest house. Can we just like all agree on that?
So, yeah. Is that the new Gryffindor?
I think so. Yeah. It's the best. That's why I like equating it to Slytherin, actually. Like I said in the article too, like I really like the idea that this sort of explores, like this might be what Slytherin could have been like, if not for all the negative associations and stereotypes of Hogwarts, because it is for those like who internalize, it's like smart Gryffindors. I say this having identified as a Gryffindor, so please don't be mad at me, but like, you know, that think things through more and that are very ambitious and very sort of set out to do things, you know, for themselves or the cause they believe in. Mm-hmm. And I like the idea that could be, you know,
there's also Wampus though. There's also the warriors. There's also the body and the
Gryffindor.
Yeah. So I don't know. But what about Micah and what did you think, Micah? Like Thunderbird for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would not connect as much with the adventurous side of it, but how it broke down the representation of the witch or the wizard, the fact that it's the soul of that individual, I thought was a really cool connection to make. And so that part of it I like. I mean, going back to Hogwarts, I was sorted into Ravenclaw, and I always thought that that's kind of where I fit. So it's interesting to me that if we're comparing Thunderbird to be more from a popularity standpoint Gryffindor, but I've also seen it compared to Slytherin. So it's interesting to me that this is where I would end up, although I did get, when I went through and did the sorting on Pottermore the first time, a hat stall between Ravenclaw and Slytherin. So maybe this is starting to show my true colors.
Micah, you're good for the soul.
so let's get into the Ilvermorny story. It was very exciting to get sorted, but of course there was this giant story here. First of all, just a basic. Ilvermorny is in the United States. It's atop Mount Greylock in Massachusetts. There was some debate when they first revealed this map, because it looked like it was sitting on the Canadian border, so people were wondering if it really was in America.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I got into a Twitter war with somebody over that. So I was very excited to hear that I was right. Anyway, Eric or Micah, do you want to lead us through this discussion?
Yeah, I will. No problem. The Ilvermorny is situated, as it turns out, on the top of Mount Greylock, which is in part of present-day Adams, Massachusetts. It's actually, the story's only slightly misleading here. It's actually like a 3.5-hour drive, hundreds of miles from where Plymouth is. In the story, Isolde Sayre, who we'll get into in just a moment, who ends up founding Ilvermorny, sort of wanders from Plymouth settlement into, like, it just says into the woods, but she's actually traveling across the entire state, to Mount Greylock, which is, becomes the settlement for Ilvermorny, which is, sort of shrouded in mist. And it's a perfect location for a school that has to still be kept away from prying nomad eyes. God, did I just use that word? It's interesting because this whole story, just as an overview, when you're going through it, there are, I think, deliberate connections to Hogwarts, both in that Isolde always wanted to go to Hogwarts, and so did the kids that we learn about later in the story. But also that there's some sort of history that really ties in Isolde's history. Isolde's personal history ties into Hogwarts in a huge way. So getting into that, Isolde is a direct descendant of Salazar Slytherin.
Yes.
And I mean, surprise, surprise, who clicked on Magic in North America Part 5 and expected Salazar Slytherin to pop up?
Yeah, definitely not.
I love that.
Yeah, since the information we had heard about the school so far didn't really connect to the Harry Potter characters we knew. So yeah, that was
really
cool.
not letting the Gaunt family go, is she?
No, they are deeply intertwined in the whole wizarding world, it seems.
Yeah, so she's a direct descendant of Salazar Slytherin, and also a famous witch called Morrigan, who they're both described as being pureblood families. And Gaunt, which you mentioned, Isolde has an aunt, or an aunt Gaunt. Aunt Gormlaith, would you say? How would you say this?
Gormlaith?
Gormlaith?
Yeah.
Let's all just agree for the purposes of this episode to say Gormlaith.
Okay.
Gormlaith is like the Aunt Petunia of the story. Well, in a way, but she's also
far worse.
Far worse, yeah. The evil stepmother, let's say, who
this is basically Cinderella of the magical world.
Or is it Rapunzel?
I don't know. Good question.
We got an email about we got a message
one of the
about
listeners
that.
wrote in.
Yeah. We'll read that later. But and it's brilliant. But essentially, Gormlaith Gaunt, pureblood fanatic. Surprise, surprise. Doesn't like the way that Isolde's parents are interacting with their local nomad neighbors, healing them, offering potions, protecting them and their livestock, and decides to essentially kill them and kidnap Isolt, and raise her as her own. So Isolt, from the age of 5, is raised by Gormleth, and actually not allowed to attend Hogwarts, which is interesting. Gormleth, early on, this is 1605, or 1610, has such scorn for what Hogwarts has become, and that it did not become the school just for purebloods that Salazar Slytherin had wanted it to be. So that's actually really cool.
This is basically Harry Potter if Harry had decided to go off to another part of the world and start a wizarding school.
Maybe.
It's really good, though. I like how closely it resembles, yet it's totally different.
Yeah.
And so it's not until Isolde is about 20 where it's said that Gormleth keeps her. She grew up in a area, actually a cottage called Ilvermorny, in County Kerry, Ireland, and Gormleth moved her after her parents' death to a local place. I think it's called Hag's Glen, is its like colloquial name, but shrouded in dark magic, and essentially Isolde is isolated from her local nomad neighbors, and it's kind of sad actually in terms of I actually would compare it to Harry feeling alone and sort of orphaned from it all. She is sort of, in a way, Isolde is an orphan.
Yeah. And just reading this story and learning about her, you just want a full story about her, because she seems like such a remarkable person, such a badass. Where she comes from. Yeah.
And she's a badass. She steals Gormleth's wand and escapes finally at the age of about 20 to America. She cuts her hair, she disguises herself as a man, and gets on the Mayflower, which travels to America. And this is she didn't destroy her aunt, she just sort of escaped. And so Isolde from this day forward lives in this fear from her aunt of like retribution, and that her aunt will find her. So first she moves to England, then she moves to America.
Mm-hmm.
And then enter the Pukwudgie.
Enter the Pukwudgie. Oh yeah. She wanders into the woods 1,000 miles away.
Sounds safe.
No, it's several hundred miles. I'm actually typing it in right now, but I'll keep talking. She wanders into the woods and encounters not one but 2 magical creatures that she did not know anything about. One is a hide behind, and the other is of course, Pukwudgie.
Saying that out loud is
What, hide behind?
Hide behind, yeah.
Hide behind. Well, what does it do? What does it do?
It's just it's again like something that like, I mean, it is from American folklore. I did Google it, but it's just something that when I first read it, I was like, is this another one of J.K. Rowling's weird words that she's inventing, or? But yeah, no, I thought that was kind of entertaining.
Like Leatherfold?
Yeah, right.
I like Leatherfold. That's one of my favorite beasts in the Fantastic Beasts. But yeah, she stumbles into the forest, which I looked, it's 160 miles away from Plymouth, and winds up witnessing a Pukwudgie nearly destroyed, nearly eviscerated by this hide behind, and is able to somehow save the Pukwudgie. So this was cool. This is sort of an early indicator that Isolde has a lot of sort of adaptive skill in this story. It comes into play, I guess, throughout the entire story, just that she has sort of a kind nature. She wants to help and is actually quite capable, despite her sheltered upbringing, of, I guess, doing what actually ends up working, of being successful at magic.
As a Pukwudgie myself, I'm disappointed in William that he needed help in fending off this hide behind. But all right.
I think the point with that is these characters, these creatures, are supposed to be that much more terrifying, right? So it's just that it's all fresh and new. Like even the Pukwudgie, which the story says are very dangerous creatures, and normally you wouldn't even want to approach a Pukwudgie.
Damn right. Don't approach me.
Don't
approach Andrew the
He's
Puckwudgie.
Got your
fiercely
bow and arrow
loyal.
ready?
Yeah.
Normally you wouldn't even want to approach a Puckwudgie, but she does to save it from a hide behind, which is the particularly nasty hide behind, even more terrifying, and was going to kill the Puckwudgie. So you get this new world aspect of it's scary, it's dangerous, it's uncharted to Europeans, and they just don't know what to expect. And so I guess this creates a blood debt for the Puckwudgie, who eventually is named William after Isolde's father, because he will not tell her his individual name. And she nurses him back to health, and in turn he introduces her to the local wildlife and in terms of magic, and they begin sort of I guess he's described as like a curmudgeon. They have sort of like a curmudgeonly friendship that naturally over the course of time evolves.
He reminds me of Creature.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you look at the Puckwudgie art on Pottermore, you get that. Is that what you mean, or just based on his description?
Well, just from his behavior too. I mean, just the idea of Puckwudgies, at least in terms of how they, at the end of the story, seem to serve Ilvermorny, remind me overall of house elves, but house William elves, in particular, I was going to compare him to Dobby, but I think Dobby's personality is a little too different. Creature falls in line with William's, especially how he comes around at the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. And the story does say that Puckwudgies are distantly related to goblins. But I also see, I mean, for the purposes of the story, it seems that they're closer to house elves as well.
So then how do we meet the next two?
So there's some children in need, and actually sort of echoing the story of William and the hide behind. Isolde and William they hear a scream, I guess. They hear the sound of a mother and father being killed viciously. And these two boys, Webster and Chadwick Boot, are left alive after, unfortunately, their parents have died. And the very same hide behind that was going to kill William is finally destroyed. I guess it had escaped wounded. Maybe they recognized it from a scar, but they knew it was the same one, and they finally killed it. But this actually becomes, and it's very interesting, an issue of contention between Isolde and William. Because William typically, and Isolde is an exception, but Puckwudgies don't usually associate with humans. They don't waste any of their effort or any of their time helping humans. This kind of reminds me of a goblin connection. But it's because of the blood debt that Isolde eventually grudges William into helping her carry the boys. All she wants is for him to carry the boys back to their sort of stone flap of a shelter. And he grudgingly agrees, and then she dismisses him because they argued.
Yeah.
So was the debt paid, though? Do you really feel like, I mean, we know how the story ends, but
right.
Clearly he was waiting for her.
Yeah.
We can talk more about this later, but he was waiting for her to have that moment of need, and of course he shows up, but it's made to make you think that by him willingly carrying one of the boys back, that he is repaying his debt, which of course we know. I guess my question is, did he know in that moment that he wasn't repaying the debt and that it was still a possibility that he could be called on later to help her?
This is where we need more story, because this is where the emotion would come into it. Like, we would love to see that scene play out between them, you know?
Maybe we're meant to form our own opinion on it. Like, what do you think,
Selena? But there isn't enough for me to form my own opinion on it.
Oh, darn. Well, it's kind of, it's going to be one or the other, though, right? Because she specifically, in the story, she specifically calls out and says, as repayment of the debt that you owe me, help me take this, take one of these children back. And he's like, oh, and he grudgingly agrees. So
but he clearly still continued to, as we see from the story later, he still continued to sort of keep, he still wanted to help her and he still wanted to stick around.
So is that his personal choice, or is it that the blood debt was not? I mean, I think we're meant to, and it should be fairly easy to just decide which is.
Well, okay. As a Puckwudgie myself,
okay,
maybe it's just maybe the heart thing if we're going to take that literally and say that he actually does lead with his heart, right? Then I would say that explains it.
Yeah, I would actually tend to agree. Because I think it has a sort of beauty either way. But we'll get to that, I guess, in a moment. So Webster and Chadwick Boot, surprise, surprise, turn out to be magical. Isn't this beautiful? Isolde has stumbled upon these children, which she raises essentially as her own, but actually at first she needs to go back and bury their parents. She never got a chance to. Things were so rushed, the children were injured, and she actually stumbles upon returning to the site of the attack on this muggle, this nomad dude. His name is James.
Yeah.
And he's just chilling.
Who is the who's the nomad in Fantastic Beasts? I'm trying to remember.
It's not Jacob, is it?
Jacob. That's right.
Jacob.
Oh, it is Jacob.
He's the Jacob of this story.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's also coincident that his name is James. And there's a moment later on in the story where he's basically trying to die in protection of his children. And I just thought, really, Joe, you couldn't come up with another name for a father who would die for love and protection of their child?
Whoa. Okay, I take offense to that. My middle name is James. I love the name.
My middle name is
it.
James too.
Your middle name is James. Emerson's middle name is James. Everybody cool has a middle name James. And
Micah, you're just jealous.
I don't.
Oh, okay. Well, Selena, what's your middle name?
James.
Yes,
Isabella.
Jealous, but I just thought that was interesting.
I predict there will be a cool Harry Potter character named Isabella soon.
Well, not now.
How about right now, Joe? But yeah, that is interesting. You're right, and Micah, and the parallels just keep coming. But essentially, they start a family, and this is how this works. Like James, it's a bit Princess Bride-esque. As you're reading it, because Isolde initially fully intends to wipe James's memory. What ends up happening is she goes to bury the body. She meets him, and he had befriended the boys actually on his ship over, and just happened to go in search of the family when they disappeared. And she fully intends to obliviate him because she's unable, like she's magically remedying these children in front of him, and he's not supposed to be able to see that kind of stuff. But eventually they fall in love, despite all odds. She never obliviates him. This is what I want in like this story,
So,
you know?
Okay, can I ask, because this is actually something, I know we're trying to move on. It's like breaking down an entire Harry Potter book in one episode, but
I know, it feels
so
like that.
I have this thing, and I'm sure that Joe has a plan for it, and it's all fine. But I'm just wondering, in the wizarding world, how there's so much in American wizarding world at the time of Fantastic Beasts. There's so much like rules, like we know that witches and wizards can't marry no-mages because of all the tensions. But I'm just thinking, if you literally have the founders of Ilvermorny be a no-mage and a witch, doesn't that seem a little bit strange to you guys? Like,
it does.
I know there's been a lot of tension since then, but it just seems like if literally the British, the American magical community was founded by the union of a no-mage and a witch,
Yeah. No, it's true. And I think somewhere in the story it says that like Ilvermorny is one of the least elitist schools because it was founded. But then you look at what Joe has previously written on magic in North America, and you find a world in which no-mage and wizards are even further separated, and have been persecuted, and there's been a lot of bloodshed between the two, much more so than in Europe. And you're just like, what? So I think
it's all just a little hypocritical when they have a no-mage to basically thank for, everything that's happened in the wizarding world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, it is after all James who first develops the schematics for a cottage. Even it's not it's not a castle at that point, but
his statue is in the castle still, so we know that they are aware of him still.
Yeah. But this family is very happy. They begin to have they have two daughters. So actually James and Isolde marry. They fall in love. They marry, and they have two twin sisters, two twin daughters, I should say. And it's about this time where everybody's favorite aunt Aunt Sad Face, Aunt Frowny Face, Aunt Gormleth, do we call her, hears that there has begun a school across the pond, and it's called Ilvermorny.
Aunt Gant is, I think, the word you're
Aunt
looking
Gant,
for.
thank you. Aunt Gant.
Sounds better than Aunt Gaunt.
Yeah, Aunt Gant, who in the years since her defeat apparently has not repurchased a wand to replace her missing one, gets a wand from Ollivanders, also disguises herself as a man, travels under the name of Isolde's father, William Sayer, comes across on a ship, and on one fateful evening confronts, or actually appears in the woods outside of Ilvermorny. And this is where the story just explodes in my mind. This is just where like all the coolest stuff that you could think about happens in terms of its correspondent to the Harry Potter universe.
Yeah. Because of the power of love, as you know.
Because of the power of love is huge. Also, we learn that Slytherin's wand, which Isolde has, which was Gormleth's wand previously, can be disabled.
I need a flow chart for all this.
This is great, right? The wand can be put to sleep. So Slytherin's wand, which by the way has a core of basilisk horn, which, I mean, that just throws Chamber of Secrets right into relevance for me.
Yeah.
Slytherin's monster is a basilisk. Hell, it could be the same one. Maybe he told the basilisk to sleep, and it was the same basilisk that Harry encountered thousands of years later, or 1,000 years later, that, you know, was the one that...
It lost its horn since then, but okay.
Yeah. I think it had little spiky horn things, right?
Oh, maybe it did.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Let's consult the prop department.
Its horn was... Anyway.
Yeah. But that's... So Slytherin's wand is made of basilisk. He taught the wand to sleep. So there's some word, and Joe is very clever to not say what it is, but it's in Parseltongue, and she utters it, and it disables... the wand.
Why do you say she's very clever to not say what it is?
Well, it's just like Horcruxes, right? You're not supposed to know what like the process is.
Okay.
Like I just think there's a scene in Narnia in The Magician's Nephew where the White Witch freezes her entire planet and race in time and space, essentially killing them. It all but kills them by uttering a single what's called the deplorable word. It's like the idea that a word has power. And similarly, this magic, Isolde's, Gaunt, Gormleth says a curse that has their names in it, Isolde and, James's names, and it puts them into an enchanted sleep, like Sleeping Beauty. But this is interesting new magic here.
At the same time, what she doesn't realize she's doing is she is sort of enhancing the power of the wand cores for both Chadwick and Webster, which is made from the horned serpent.
And this was a part of the story we skipped over by accident. But Isolde can understand Parseltongue and has befriended a horned serpent.
I think
nearby.
it says she can't, but we'd have to check that. I just don't want to.
Yeah, like I think it says she can't. It says she can't speak it, but she understand. Like she befriends it and is able to understand or comprehend what it's saying to her. Right. So that's weird. But anyway, yeah, her children's wands are made from the horn of the horned serpent, and this Parseltongue that Gormleth utters, which disables Isolde's wands, actually notifies Chadwick and Webster. They get a little text message on their wand that says, "Hey, get up! It's time to fight."
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And sort of the whole backstory connection we talked about Slytherin, but the fact that this dream that Isolde had, where the horned serpent told her, "Until I'm part of your family is doomed." Of course, the way that this serpent becomes part of the family is by giving his horn and becoming part of Chadwick and Webster's wand. And of course, if that didn't happen, I guess we're meant to believe that Ilvermorny would have been destroyed. So a bit of a prophecy included that comes true. I thought it was a cool little piece that got included there.
Absolutely.
I do think it's sort of like a recurring theme. I can't decide if I like the symmetry or if I think it's too heavy-handed that the Gaunts are just like continually confused by love. Like they just do not understand. Like Gormleth is like, it's the same she has the same fall as Voldemort because she ultimately she underestimates the power of love, right?
Yeah. I
also-
like that element of how they keep...
Well, actually, she underestimates it first. Voldemort should have not made the same mistake as her.
Well, she didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, maybe
If
I don't
he
know
knew
how much-
history, clearly
if he
he
knew-
did not study in Bin's class.
No, he did not. Didn't pay
Clearly
attention.
not. Yeah. I also will say that she didn't hear anything. The girls were infants. It's the scream of the infants that wakes the mother and father. The terrified scream due to the destruction that's at that point. It was in the yard. Now it's in the castle. But she had never heard the story of the young. Nobody tells tales about the daughters yet because they're just infants. So Gormleth didn't actually know that there was anyone else in the castle at the time. So there is that. I'm not trying
Well,
to.
she knew the daughters were there. She didn't know that Chadwick and Webster were there.
Mm-hmm.
No, she heard about Chadwick and Webster. I thought it was the children she didn't know about,
No.
or else she would have put them
it's
to
the
sleep.
reverse.
Okay,
Mhm.
All right. Well, I'll go with you.
That's why she was surprised when they came outside.
Right, and she's trying to discern who their parents were, or like
Because
what
her
their
whole
bloodline.
because her whole purpose is to kidnap her niece. Well, I guess
You're right. You're right.
her grandnieces. Is that what they would be?
Yeah, she wants to start over with the two girls. You're right. I was completely off. It's essentially the story, like history is going to repeat itself. She wants to take the girls back to Hag's Glen and raise them in her own image the same way she did Isol. So that's actually kind of cool, but terrifying and sad if she were to have been successful.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what happens next?
Chadwick and Webster give her a run for her money, but her dark magic ends up, pretty closely matching them a little bit more. But there's a moment where she's about to kill James in what I imagine to be the bedroom, and Isolde, just not really knowing what she's saying, shouts out, "William!" And William the Puckwudgie, Slytherin and Andrew and Selena on the windowsill appear and shoot arrows, or
Yes,
one
we
arrow
do.
into one arrow into Gormleth's cold dead heart.
We had Katniss helping us too.
Yeah, of course.
And
Well, I've
Katniss
been
is
practicing.
Yeah.
in Puckwudgie. And Gormleth dies.
Peace out.
Yay! The witch is dead.
She died
Yeah.
much like Bellatrix. I don't know.
See it in the movie.
Yeah, she
caught that.
exploded into smoke. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting is
Now that's finally justified. That's in the movie. Oh,
Well,
that
that's
is
what makes
canon.
it-
Okay.
That makes it interesting because the story goes into an unusual sense of detail here by saying that the venom in William's arrow reacts negatively with curses, particular curses that were used to prolong Gormleth's invulnerability, or her life. Like, essentially, Gormleth was a precursor to Voldemort in many ways, who had used dark magic to extend her life or protect herself from death. And
Sure.
she nobody suspected or prepared for the foreign venom of the Puckwudgie arrow.
Mm.
America.
America!
America, F yeah.
So Gormleth dies. Her Ollivander store-bought wand just bursts open, and the day is saved. And it actually, I think, brings about an interesting change in the family. From that moment on, the girls who grow up, talking about the girls for a moment, Martha and, what do we say, Rhiannash?
Rihanna, I think.
Rihanna.
Oh, Rhianna?
Rihanna.
Rhianna?
I think.
Let's say Rhianna. Martha and Rhianna.
Okay.
Diana.
The story of Gormleth Gaunt ends up just impacting everyone, I think. And they grow up kind of in fear of repeating that kind of malice. Like Martha, who it turns out is a squib, marries a friend of hers from the Puckumtuck tribe. And Rhianna, who teaches defense against the dark arts eventually at Ilvermorny, decides to never marry. Presumably it's a conscious decision to not further the line.
Yeah, and see, I was expecting a totally different reason she didn't marry, and I was like, really, Joe?
Which were you
Yeah.
expect?
Well, I thought she was gonna be like a lesbian or something. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then it turned out she just literally didn't want to marry him.
She didn't
Okay.
marry because she was a lesbian.
So the rumor is she could speak parcel tongue, and I guess given all the drama that had happened in her family, she saw it essentially as bad blood and decided not to marry or further the line.
Mhm.
And actually, I think the story implies they would have or could have snubbed out the Gaunt line had there not been more back in England. They would have essentially stopped Slytherin's lineage from existing in the world entirely. And in fact, along those lines, Slytherin's wand has a resting place, which absolutely 100% must come into play at some point in a story that she writes.
I hope not.
Within the next 3 or 4, 100 years of wizarding history, Slytherin's wand is buried on the grounds of Ilvermorny, turns into a snakewood bush of indescribable species, whatever, comes up from the ground, grows, eventually produces, leaves with magical healing properties. But Slytherin's wand remains inactive and is buried underneath this tree, or becomes this tree of sorts.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go, guys. This is how it all ties together, because the next Harry Potter play is all about the characters going to America to find Slytherin's wand.
Wow.
Is it Harry Potter and the Cursed Bush?
Yeah. Exactly that title.
I do think that's really cool, though, how this wand is essentially a seed for a tree.
It's like the Merlin story, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know much about that, but I trust you do.
Okay.
It kind of just shows you how the wand is very much a part of the earth. It's based on what it's made from. We always hear the ingredients that are in a wand. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's
And I
kind of
like-
beautiful. That's like a seed.
How she said the best part of Slytherin seemed to have migrated to America.
Yeah.
Given the fact that, as Eric mentioned, this tree seems to have certain medicinal properties and be able to heal. So
It's also in its docile state that it does this, which is very interesting. So you have a wand that I would typically equate to an elder wand, right? It's this badass wand. You can teach it to sleep so that your enemies can't get a hold of it, all this cool stuff. But it ends up being rendered sort of moot in a really cool way. Like, it still has the magic, like the good benefits, as you said, but it's not, being sought after. Like, I think it's probably a well-kept secret what is at the heart of the root of that bush.
Yeah. So let's talk about the kiddies then, the children.
Okay.
What they went on to be.
Yeah, so as we mentioned, Martha was a squib, which that's actually really sad for me. I was thinking like, oh man, because Isel is the product of 2 pureblood families. James being a Muggle, they have 2 daughters to their own of their blood, and one of them is a squib. And really the saddest part is not that she can't do magic, but that she's raised in a wizarding school.
I know.
And it's the Argus Filch. Like, I feel bad
That
for
would
Filch
suck.
while
Yeah.
reading about Martha. Like, there's just this disconnect. She doesn't feel like she's fully part of the wizarding world, despite all her family. And she marries a no-mage, and, it doesn't necessarily move away the way Webster does. But is just kind of forever one step away, like one at arm's length, I guess. And that's just sad when you hear about like growing up in Ilvermorny and not being able to learn magic.
Yeah, that would totally suck.
But, and
It's
then
like being at the
Riona,
party and just being the person who's left out. of all the
Yeah.
fun.
I mean, but then again, like, Riona doesn't have a happy life either necessarily. I mean, well, actually, let's not equate whether a person's life was happy or not based on whether they married. I guess that's flawed. But she does have that sort of determination to not further the line, which is no small thing.
Yeah.
So she decides to die alone, I guess. Maybe we'll find out more later. Webster kind of, riffing off of his success at defeating or helping to defeat Gaunty, can we call her?
Yeah.
It becomes an Auror for hire, and he actually returns to London and has a happy, prosperous life and family. He's actually said to be repatriating a particularly dark wizard of unknown name back to London, and meets his wife and marries, and eventually has children who have children who have children who have children who 20 generations later have Terry Boot, presumably.
Okay.
Yay,
Little
a
connection there.
tie-in.
Good.
Little connection. And Chadwick, then, the other child, is the author of Chadwick's Charms, volumes 1 through 7, which are standard texts at Ilvermorny. He marries a Mexican healer, Josefina Calderon, and the Calderon Boot family remains one of Wizarding America's most prominent today.
All right. So now we get to Ilvermorny today. This was the final section in Pottermore's, in J.K. Rowling's big breakdown of it. The sorting process. So there's no sorting hat like there is at Hogwarts. To quote the J.K. Rowling's writing here, here's how it happens at Ilvermorny. While the rest of the school watches from the circular balcony overhead, new students file into the round entrance hall. They stand around the walls and one by one are called to stand on the symbol of the Gordian knot set into the middle of the stone floor. In silence, the school then waits for the enchanted carvings to react. If the horned serpent wants the student, the crystal set into its forehead will light up. If the wampus wants the student, it roars. The thunderbird signifies its approval by beating its wings, and the puckwudgie will raise its arrow into the air. Selena and I both experienced that. It was very exciting.
We did.
I like this sorting a lot. I think it has a very epic feel to it.
It's a lot cooler.
Yeah.
Is it better than having like a voice in your head trying to argue with you about where you should go? Like based on
I
the
argue
first
with
thought that
myself
pops
all
into
the
your mind.
time. Yeah, I don't need a hat that I'm wearing to argue.
I mean, there's
back.
something that will always be unique about Hogwarts, but
Of course.
I just think that this process, at least to me, seems a lot cooler than having a dusty old hat put on your head.
Yeah.
And I could really visualize this in my head when I was reading this part of it. It just seems like something that, who knows, could maybe show up in Fantastic Beasts at some point. The movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that would be definitely interesting. The other thing that seems to happen, and maybe this is just Jo covering her bases, because she introduced outside of the books the idea of hat stalls. You know, like Pottermore exclusively talked about hat stalls first, and then she went back and said like McGonagall was a hat stall and Hermione was almost a hat stall and all this other stuff, hat stalls. But so in this backstory, she actually talks about more than one house claiming a student, or saying that it might be covering her bases, or it might be that this just happens more often at Ilvermorny. I think the text's a little ambiguous there, but
well, based on the fact that people are taking this quiz, you know, like Selena, and getting different houses each time, maybe that all adds up now.
I think so it's possible that it's more common for people to be picked for more than one house. It's their choice.
I just think they're like,
happens.
It's a bad quiz. I'm sorry, Jo.
Well,
please forgive us.
I will give you that. You should get the same answer every time you take it. Every time you personally
and I mean,
take
but
it.
you're never going to get that with an online quiz. And I think that's why something like Hogwarts feels so more real to us, because we literally have, like, we have online quizzes. We have every single character in Hogwarts making up the canvas of what that house stands for. Mm-hmm. You know, well, not really so much for Hufflepuff and Slytherin. We're really stereotyped. But for Gryffindor and Ravenclaw, both, you have like, oh my God, this huge selection of people like that tell you, okay, it's about something deeper inside of you. Here, it's literally just like, oh, what house are you going to be today? You know, like if I answer, I'm the strongest when I'm awake, I get this house. You know, I don't know. I need a book. It's my answer.
I wonder if, and this, the only way this is going to probably really work is once the Fantastic Beasts movies come out, plural, and we start meeting American wizards and maybe in passing finding out what houses we are in, they will begin to embody our understanding of each of those houses.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, to a certain extent, the story does attempt to say that the houses take on the qualities of their founders. You know, Webster, Chadwick, James, and Isolde each have their own sort of house, and their personalities leak into them. But I think the story is still too short to really be able to gain much out of it. in terms of what that means.
So, as we mentioned earlier, once a decade, a student is placed in all four houses, and here comes a Fantastic Beasts movie connection. Serafina Pickery, president of MACUSA from 1920 to 1928, she is one of those people who was sorted into all four houses. Now, she, as I just said, is the president of MACUSA during the movie, and we've seen her in the trailer already. So that'll be interesting. I guess she's a very unique type of person if she's sorted into all four houses. Is she like a Hermione? She's just very skilled, can do anything.
I have a feeling that we'll be getting a lot of story on Serafina, if not in the films, then a backstory on Pottermore.
That's actually interesting because this she's the minister or the president of magic until 1928, and the first Fantastic Beasts movie takes place in 1926. So
is it 1926 or is it a couple of years earlier?
I just read it to be 1926, but again, I just went to Wikipedia. So
that's 8 years. Maybe they have 4-year terms, like in the US.
Maybe, yeah. But then maybe we'll see a new minister or president of magic.
Well, based on what's happening in Fantastic Beasts, like she is going to be getting involved because of this leak, because of Muggles finding out about magic. So she could potentially step down on her own, or she could get thrown out.
Or, thrown out. I think this is the second or third time that Pottermore has mentioned Serafina, though. She was mentioned in the last piece on magic in North America, in terms of, I think it's magic in 1920s North America is the segment, but her origin is explained a little bit. She's from Savannah. I assume that's Savannah, Georgia. She becomes president, and we've seen her in all the trailers and stuff. So I think she has a big role to play because she's popping up in all these different areas. She just sort of gets called out in this story, which is not about, anybody that's not the founder of Ilvermorny, as being one of four houses. So
yeah. And then a couple other facts here about Ilvermorny. The wands, the students don't receive the wands until after they are sorted, which is interesting. That differs from Hogwarts. The robes are blue and cranberry. Now, someone reminded me, when I was at CinemaCon a couple months ago, they showed this Fantastic Beasts preview. And there was this very quick glimpse of a group of what looked to me, students. And they were wearing red. Now, I didn't see any blue, so I'm still not sure if those were Ilvermorny students in that shot. But, you know what, come to think of it, now I'm thinking about it, I feel like they did have an emblem that looks like that Ilvermorny one that they released on Pottermore. I think we're going to see a group of Ilvermorny students.
Time for some more detective work.
We got to go look at this, yeah.
I think we're going to see a group of Ilvermorny students in the film. I will make that prediction now.
Oh man!
So my guess is, if those were the robes are cranberry, and then like underneath they're blue, because they were because
James likes cranberries or something like that, right?
Cranberry pie.
Yeah, pie.
Cranberry
cranberry
pie.
That's so funny. Yeah. That is so funny.
Hey, you don't need a better reason sometimes. It's just that simple.
It's just right.
All right, what should we color our robes? Well, I just had some cranberry pie. It tasted pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's do red.
Cranberry pie on your nose. Did you know? Just there.
But they made them blue, and then he spilled cranberry pie all over himself, and they were like, "Oh, that looks nice."
That goes well together. Yeah. Not having had a formal art education among the four of them, they just thought it looked nice.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Sure. Why not?
I think it's.
And then finally, Eric.
Yes. History time again. Pukwudgies continue to work at the school, including one particular very old Pukwudgie whose name is William.
Oh,
and Andrew, I guess.
Ignore me. I'm just being goofy. Ignore me.
There's a Pukwudgie who on the anniversary of Isolde's death polishes her statue and lays mayflowers at the bottom of it. I teared up while reading it the second time on Pottermore, and he laughs off the idea that he's the original William, but is oddly defensive, all things considered, of Isolde's statue. And sort of to tie into the beauty that Jo can sometimes evoke in her writing, to me, bookending the story with death, the death of Isolde's parents and eventually the death of Isolde and James. William, who has been blessed with presumably an unnaturally long life, has witnessed his loved ones passing. Isolde and James, these amazing people, lived and died, right? Their school lives on, their majesty and accomplishments live on, but ultimately William is shown grieving or paying tribute to the fallen. And so for all the Gormleths, Gaunts, for all the Gaunties out there, who want to live forever, these great witches and wizards whose story we got, did end up dying, and they're gone now, and all we have is a statue to them. So I thought it was particularly evocative of Joe's general message, as in Harry Potter.
Well, and also bookending it with two Williams, right? So you had, as you mentioned, the death of William at the beginning, but also knowing that there's still a William on the grounds of Ilvermorny, in a way protecting his daughter. And I think that was very well done. And I know, who knows? I mean, it could be a descendant of a descendant of a descendant of William, and sort of as time passes, it's passed on from one to the other that, they need to be protective and respectful of Isolde. But I like the idea that it is the original. It's stated that we don't know how long Pukwudgies live, so he could live hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. That's what, the writing of J.K. Rowling, when I was talking about earlier how this felt very much like one of her stories, it's things like that, that she's able to weave in there that just harken back to when she was writing the Potter series.
Yeah. And that is Ilvermorny, ladies and gentlemen. Eric, thank you for leading us through story time.
Oh, yeah. You're welcome. Please return the pillows to the back of the class before walking out the door.
No, I peed myself. I peed on
damn.
the pillow during the scarier
Andrew,
moments
not
of the
again.
story.
Convenient.
So convenient. So on Patreon, we asked our supporters a question, getting back to the houses and the sorting. I wanted to know in what ways people's Ilvermorny houses and Hogwarts houses collectively reflect them. And do you see why J.K. Rowling assigned you these two houses in particular?
That's a good question.
Because a lot of people, the biggest question, as kind of Eric hinted at earlier, is that a lot of people were desperately looking for the Hogwarts Ilvermorny connections. So I'm just going to, we got a ton of responses, and thank you to everybody who submitted. It was fun to read all of these, and patrons can continue to read all of them. But I'm just going to read the first few here. Helen said, I'm a Ravenclaw, and I always been quite geeky and bookish, but I am also a pharmacist, so the healer side of Pukwudgie fits too. I think that's beautiful. I mean, that is a great connection for you.
Pretty good.
I am certainly not a healer in any way, so I'm confused by my Pukwudgie-ness. Jennifer says, I am Slytherin and Thunderbird. I know I am ambitious and can be manipulative and slow to trust, so I identify with Slytherin a lot. I didn't think of myself as adventurous, but someone online said Thunderbirds make decisions based on experience, and that makes sense. I'm a physicist, and if I need to go on an adventure to get the data I need to make an informed decision, then that is what I will do. I'm mostly waiting until the movie comes out to see what new info on the houses we'll have by then. Elizabeth says, I am a Hufflepuff and Thunderbird. I can see why I am Hufflepuff. I am laid back, a hard worker, and loyal. However, I'm still a bit confused about Thunderbird. I never really considered myself to be adventurous. Maybe just in my daydreams. Haha. And,
That's cute.
Yeah, one more here, two more. This is from Chase. I landed Gryffindor on my Hogwarts sorting and Pukwudgie on my Ilvermorny. Initially, I was a little upset. Let's be honest, Wampus just sounded so cool. Okay,
it's
Chase.
described as being like an unkillable beast. It's pretty cool.
Oh, well, that is cool, yeah. But after reading all the available lore Joe has provided thus far, I'm more in love with my Ilvermorny sorting than my original Hogwarts. Everyone knows the story of Gryffindor by now, so I'll spare the details and characters traits, but I see a lot of the same characteristics in Pukwudgie. Courageous, caring, kind, to name a few. But the hidden don't mess with us traits, Pukwudgie's carry, is what really sold me on the house. I've always felt I was a little too cold-blooded, so to speak, to be a true Gryffindor, but with Pukwudgie and my apparent school, legal poisonous darts, it totally fits.
And that's where I feel
School
like the
legal.
connection like between like the stuff you show and your inner life, like why you act the way you do, sort of comes in and makes the two schools sortings go so well together, is because what you say, you're a Gryffindor, right? Like Hermione's a Gryffindor, Harry's a Gryffindor, Neville's a Gryffindor. These are all people, if we were fantasy sorting them, we would probably sort them into like Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff and maybe Slytherin for Harry, you know, but because they were all sorted into Gryffindor, they come to be defined by their bravery. And this is like, but why are you brave? You know, are you brave for your, you know, why are you the person who is like guided by your body, or are you guided by your soul or your need for intellect or your kindness? But you can still be a Gryffindor, you know?
Yeah. We have those anomalies too, like Peter Pettigrew, who's Gryffindor. And it's like, well, how does that work? Is there more to it? There's a post on Tumblr I want to read here real quick, by the Consulting Drama Queen. This was being shared around on Tumblr a lot, and I happened to come across it, even though I'm rarely on Tumblr. But it says, this is also just sort of a theory, but it's Hogwarts houses are chosen based on traits you consider important and value beyond yourself. So Hermione thinks bravery is more important than books and cleverness. That's because the founders wanted to see those values in others. On the other hand, the characters of the Ilvermorny founders leaked into the houses, so it seems to divide along the lines of how you define yourself and what tools you prefer to use in your own approach to life. So, under that theory, Horned Serpent means I am defined by what I think, which is scholars and mind. Wampus is I'm defined by what I do, warriors and body. Thunderbird, I'm defined by my experiences, adventure soul. And Puckwudgie, I'm defined by what I feel or maybe love, healer's heart. I thought that was very interesting.
That works very well, yeah. That works for me.
Yeah.
I do want to like shout out though. Oh, go on.
Well, I mean, I just don't want to crap all over people's thoughts and theories.
But here I go.
But here I go. No, and I mean it in a good way. But, you know, if we just look at it from a story standpoint, if you go back to Hogwarts, it seems like it was founded by 4 of the most intelligent and powerful witches and wizards of their day, right? There's almost an elitist touch to it. Versus going to Ilvermorny, you have, you know, somebody who's of pure blood in Iseult, but then you have a no-mage in James, and then you have 2 kids in Webster and Chadwick. So how they come about the houses, Chadwick goes with Thunderbird, Webster with Wampus, Iseult with the Horned Serpent, and James with the Puckwudgie. I'm not sure there's as much in-depth thought that's been provided to these houses than, say, back at Hogwarts with the 4 that were created by the founders.
I think that's fair. I mean, Chadwick just thinks that the Wampus is cool, right? So there's that.
But that's why I think they sort of, I mean, and when she says like, it is said that they correlate, it's not like that is actual fact that they are the body and the mind and the soul, etc. But I do like that they, like that thing that Eric just read out, like I feel like that's what we all want to believe. And it kind of goes along with, we all kind of also, I think, assign more importance to Hogwarts sorting than we know there really is. Because again, you mentioned Pettigrew, and we know that some people are literally able to choose their own house. And we know that people change when they get older, and they might, you know, was it Dumbledore who said he might have been sorted differently?
Yeah.
So I feel like, I mean, we all sort of say, I am a Gryffindor, but really it's maybe because we wish we were a Gryffindor. And I think that sort of speaks a lot to sorting in general. It's more like what you feel like you are as opposed to what you actually are. But what I was going to say earlier is just that I feel like I should shout out, we have an Unhypeable. It comes up every once in a while, but maybe we can link it in this. I think it was Katie did a quiz called Your Hybrid Hogwarts House. Yeah. Which I always loved, because it's like, rather than saying I have to fit myself into this very square little box, you go, well, what is my, you always overlap. You always say, well, yeah. I'm a Gryffindor, but I also see myself being in Hufflepuff or Slytherin and Ravenclaw, etc. And she sort of finds, it's a very good quiz, a very detailed quiz, and you find like the 2 houses that reflect you. And I think that's a lot more balanced. And it kind of reminds me of what's going on here when you have a Hogwarts house and an Ilvermorny house, and together they define what you are.
Yeah, absolutely. now we have to create a quiz that combines the
hybrid
Hogwarts and hybrid Ilvermorny.
I will shout out my infographic then, because
I'm a Thunderpuff.
I thought that the Hogwarts houses and Ilvermorny houses might overlap if they were turned at a 45-degree, like turned sideways a little bit. So like if an Ilvermorny house could equal 2 Hogwarts houses. And this was just the theory. So I sketched something down real quick, wrote it on paper, and it turns out a longtime friend of the show, Jen Levine, who we've known for a decade now, actually made an infographic in PowerPoint, which I really like, and shared over on MuggleCast. So check that out. It's not official. Actually, it's quite flawed based on everybody getting Thunderbird and Pukwudgie. But it was a lot of fun to think about. And that was really just looking back over this last week's between this story airing and us recording the MuggleCast about it. What I will remember most fondly is just how excited everyone was. And how this sparked great discussion and had a lot of fun things. I'm still collecting data on my poll. Maybe I'll share that on Google. It's a Google form. It asks what house do you most identify with at Hogwarts? What house do you second most identify with on Hogwarts? And what house were you sorted into in Pukwudgie? And it's just, again, it's guessing what traits are matching up. And that's so, we're just trying to, I have an MIT graduate doing the data crunching, the number crunching. So I results to be concluded. Let's just say that. But I'll link it in the show notes. But let's just it's this cool idea that somehow affects how we define what we are, think about defining what we are based on this not complete information on this fictional wizard school.
Yeah.
But it's
I just
sort
wish
of
there
what
was a better quiz, with everyone doing all this work and sort of being like, I am a Thunderbird, therefore, and I'm like, yeah, but are you really?
I don't know.
Remember, it's just for fun. This is just fun. And I think we shouldn't take it.
No, what are you kidding?
We shouldn't take it too seriously.
296 episodes in, and you say we shouldn't take this too seriously.
Remember, no theory is safe.
Well, and to get back to Selena's point earlier, I think, Selena, you said that no quiz could get this right. Like, you'd get, no matter who did it. I think you could create a quiz that actually got this right every time you took it.
I agree.
Answer.
I just wanted a longer, more in-depth quiz. Basically, I would probably trust it more than like 7 questions.
Yeah.
The only way to get it right is to go to Ilvermorny.
Yeah,
let's find it. I'm sure Massachusetts Tourism Board is already figuring out how to make some money off of this. Couple comments from patrons who are listening live. Ryan says he loved your infographic, Eric. He thought it was the best comparison between the 2 schools he's seen so far.
Thanks, dude.
There you go. And Nicole points out, getting back to the annoying part of this quiz, she says, I've been watching YouTube videos of people taking the sorting quiz, and it seems that there are different versions of the quiz. Some of them had questions I didn't have when taking it.
Mm-hmm. There is actually I don't know where it is, but you can Google it. There is a quiz somewhere that has all the questions. And I don't know how they determine the answers, but I guess they crack the code or whatever. So you can actually take the complete quiz, which is maybe gives you a more accurate result. I got Wampus on that one.
Yeah, HP Wikia has all the questions published. I know that much. And screenshot images of the questions. Also, somebody was claiming that they got the same questions, answered the same way, and got different houses. And that just destroys all of my hope. That destroys everything that I ever think was sacred, about Pottermore.
Right.
It was always a question, right, Andrew? When you pointed out that it could be a conspiracy that everyone was getting sort of even amounts on Pottermore with the first Hogwarts sorting quiz, I began, I think that it would be very scandalous if this Ilvermorny thing we're doing, not the same thing, but again, what does it all mean? If they're not applicable, why would you introduce the sorting quiz with the story giving all the traits? And if they are applicable, then why aren't we getting more even quantities, or what? It's very confusing. We live in a time of confusion.
So uncertain.
Yeah. We have an email here before we wrap up today's show. This is from Marin. She says, I've been a long time listener. He or she says, I've been a long time listener to MuggleCast. You all are absolutely amazing, and listening to your podcast almost seems as if I'm listening to three or more of my closest friends talking about the topic I love the most.
You are.
I just wanted to share a few thoughts I had while reading Joe's new story on Pottermore about the history of Ilvermorny. First of all, sorry for being the one who relates everything to the Disney universe, but I was definitely feeling some serious Rapunzel vibes throughout Isolde's story. The two stories obviously don't match up completely, but Isolde was kidnapped and raised by her terrifying aunt who valued her only for her pure blood ancestry, such as Rapunzel, just as Rapunzel was kidnapped by a woman who valued her only because of her beautiful hair. Also, a way for Isolde to distance herself from her aunt was to cut off her hair, which gives a portrayal of how Rapunzel and her kidnapper's connection would have been broken. I also admire the fact that Isolde's story is the quintessential story of reaching the American dream. Isolde starts off as a poor young child who constantly lives in the shadow of her traumatic past and is chained to a woman that uses and manipulates her. However, it is her own hunger for freedom that pushes her to take the risk of immigrating to a country that she has no clue about at such a young age in search of a better life and to bravely fight through a large number of obstacles to achieve her own sense of comfort and belonging and success. Isolde's story is a story which many Americans have shared and will continue to share for many years to come. She includes the hashtag here, don't vote for Trump. It's great to see that Joe was able to include that sense of the American dream into her story of Ilvermorny School. This is a beautiful email. So on point. I hadn't thought of this angle before reading this, so thank you, Marin. And do you guys see the Rapunzel part better now? Because weren't we talking about that earlier?
Yeah, I gotta look at it's her aunt, who kidnaps her and takes her away to exclusion. I got to read the original. I know exactly who I'm going to ask about this as soon as we get off the call, about the original fairy tale and how it may or may not have been distilled into Disney's Tangled. Or was it DreamWorks' Tangled?
No.
Because that I've seen more recently. But that aunt in that movie is how I sort of picture Gormleth.
Isolde wanted to hashtag make her life great again by going to America.
God. Yeah. No, definitely. I think it's a good email and want to thank Marin and all our listeners for continually being, and on
Smart.
Patreon too, continually being, finding connections and posting about them and sharing them with each other.
Yeah. So that's what we got for today's episode, a whole Ilvermorny episode. We will be back later this month to talk about some other news that's been going on, and I'm sure we'll have more to say about Ilvermorny. And our plan right now is early August, we'll probably do a Cursed Child. Obviously, there's going to be a lot to talk about with the Cursed Child once everybody gets their hands on it. It comes out later this month.
I'm done talking about it.
We've been talking about it a lot, haven't we?
Yeah.
No, there's going to be so much more to talk about. Eric and I, by the way, will be at GeekyCon in Orlando for their Cursed Child midnight release party, and we'll be doing probably a couple panels there as well. You can go to geekycon.com for more details. It's July 29th through the 31st.
Next week I will be at Leviosa. It's a Harry Potter con. It's actually this week now that it's Sunday. The end of this week. I think it's Thursday through Sunday. Leviosa.org. Check that out if you're in the Las Vegas area, or it's just a 3-hour drive from Los Angeles. Andrew, come to Leviosa. It's a Harry Potter con, and for me it's personal because it's the 10th anniversary of Lumos, which was, I guess, MuggleCast's first live podcast at a con.
Mm-hmm.
And
I was going to say,
convention
we did one before that.
We did one before, it's fairly notable. You may have remembered that. But no, the first convention that MuggleCast went to, and the first convention I went to. So it's 10 years, and it's in Vegas, so that's pretty cool.
Same for me. That was my first time flying. And in honor of the 10th anniversary, I'll admit this for the first time. First time having a drink of alcohol. Yeah, very exciting.
We can say that now, Andrew.
I'm comfortable coming out with that.
I think MuggleCast had its own resident bartender, if I'm remembering correctly.
Maybe.
Yeah. But it was a good time, though. It was really wonderful, and excited to be back in Vegas this week. So come to Leviosa, and if not, come to GeekyCon.
Right. I'm very excited for everybody to read Cursed Child, by the way. I can't wait to get everybody's thoughts. We've been getting some feedback from people who are seeing the play. Some people did agree with us. So there was that. And we will, one thing we got, on the last episode, people were saying, well, why didn't you have more people who actually saw the play on the last episode?
Yeah, Andrew.
Well, it was a recording, it was a scheduling issue. We wanted to get it out as soon as possible. Maybe we should have waited, but
check the hype episode,
Thanks,
right?
Eric.
Right.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. Actually, I was thinking about it. And I was like, well, why don't you like? Why didn't you have us on? But then I was listening to your episode, and actually, I really enjoyed hearing Eric and Micah react to the story because I think that's how a lot of people will get to experience it. Like, I know that it's hard to judge the story in isolation, but unfortunately, that is how the majority of the Harry Potter fandom will judge the story. So I thought it was fair. And also that way, the MuggleCast spoiler episode and Hype spoiler episode sort of stand apart because Hype, the Hypable.com's podcast Hype had only people who'd seen the play on it. Myself, Danya, what's her name? Katie. Katie and Kyle were all on it and had a discussion that sort of complimented. We all saw it, yeah. So that sort of complimented yours, and they sort of.
Selena, did I tell you that Danya brought me a button? She brought me a Keep the Secret button.
She well,
did.
Too late for that.
I know. But she
you
brought me
feel
a button.
Unworthy of the button.
I saw her at Indie Pop the weekend after, and I was just like, and she got me the button, and I was like, I wanted to cry, and then I was like, I don't deserve this, and I just kept going back to Andrew's tweet, which was amazing, where he said the button blew up in his face because of the curse or the magic.
Yeah,
I have like 3 in my drawer, and I'm like ashamed when I look at them.
I know, but it's.
We want to. What was I going to say? Oh, a few of us, including Eric and I think Selena too, and Marima, she wrote a piece on Hypable this past week about it. It's becoming more and more apparent in several of our opinions that Keep the Secrets, that campaign, is more about not letting the spoilers get out because it will turn people off from the story. It's not so much like, oh, the fans need to, they can't hear what's going to happen. They don't want people to know what's going to happen because it could affect book sales.
Well, they need enough people to see the play live so that when the story comes out, if people don't like it, enough people can say, no, but the play is amazing because it literally, it is amazing, so they'll have that army of people sort of ready to support the production.
Yeah.
And that's why this plays in preview for 7 weeks. I mean, that's a long time.
And this is starting the countdown now from time of recording, 4 weeks exactly until the book comes out.
Dun, dun, dun.
I'm
excited.
pumped. Yeah.
Me too.
I do want to read it. Yeah.
Good. I started, no spoilers, but I started working on something for Hypable that I've never done before. It's something that I've never written before. I'll just say it. I'm writing a fan fiction.
Oh, yes!
I am.
Is this going to be like Andrew's Wizard Rock single? Like, can you debut it on MuggleCast?
Yeah, maybe I'll do a live reading here on.
You should do a live reading.
I thought you were going to say you were writing an article.
No, I'm writing a work of fan fiction. I don't know how it's going to be really bad. I just know that from the start.
It's going to be so good, you guys.
It's going to be a little sexy.
Well, if it's bad, that definitely means it'll be good because that's generally how that stuff works.
Oh my God.
Micah, you just insulted the whole fan fiction community.
Yeah, let's quit while we're ahead on this, guys.
But it's the reason I'm writing it is because something doesn't happen in the play that I wish did, so I'm making that happen now. So
you may or may not have mentioned that on our spoiler episode. So there's that.
Yes. If you probably know what I'm talking about if you listen.
I support it. I think that's good. I think that'll be great.
Okay, great. So it's gonna be an interesting time on the internet once this book comes out. I think that's for sure.
It's an interesting time on the internet now. It's such an interesting time to be a Harry Potter fan.
It is. It truly
to start
is.
Seeing content like this coming out and other sorting quizzes, no Patronus quizzes, but another sorting quiz. Some answers about what North America has been doing in the wizarding world. And, this is something that it's an avalanche of leading into November.
Exactly. And that puts a nice bow on it. Before we wrap up, just want to do another quick plug for our Patreon. We, like I said, this is the final month to sign up before we close off shirt opportunity. The opportunity is going to close at the end of this month. So pledge within the next few weeks if you would like to receive a brand new MuggleCast shirt. We released the designs a few weeks ago and we're really proud of them. We can't wait to wear them ourselves. So, and you'll also get lots of other benefits, including vlogs and bonus material and access to show notes. And you can listen live like several people are doing this morning to our recording, and a whole lot more, including chapter readings and whatnot. So thanks to everybody for their support there. Selena, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. We love you.
Thanks for having me.
You know that.
Oh, I love you guys too.
Aw. And don't forget, Selena is over, she does a Hype podcast, and you can listen to all their Chris Child thoughts if you want to do that.
Yes, we have a spoiler one and a spoiler free one, just like MuggleCast. So
Perfect. And I think that's it. So thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.